All right, so I want to do a video about how many money managers are starting to look at changing the traditional 60-40 split. Have you ever heard of that in the mutual fund world where it's 60% stocks, 40% bonds, especially if you want to try to have income going on into your retirement? Well, they're now questioning whether that's even going to work. All I can say is, duh. Of course it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked for a long time, but let's take a look at this because there's some other issues with this as well. Now, there's a lot of jargon in this particular article on Yahoo Finance. If you're not an economist, or even if you're not even a trader, you probably wouldn't even understand half of these things. I'm just kind of summarize this a little bit here. So what they're really proposing is more of a macro resilient portfolio. What does that mean? So it means instead of just doing 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, they're saying, let's throw in some other things. So instead of just bonds, which have been really paying nothing or even losing money lately, we'll do some things that are more inflation sensitive. Things like TIPS, as they call it, right? Which are like treasury inflation type of programs there, types of investments where they go up and down with inflation. So like, maybe we'll do that. Or maybe they'll look at other things to invest in based on what the factors are worldwide, with the feds and everything else. So they're trying to be a little less brainless with this and have a little bit more thinking, more forward thinking in what they're doing. I actually applaud them for this. Here's the issue though. The issue is this, that they're still guessing, right? If you ever watched the movie by Mel Brooks called Robin Hood Men in Tights, there's that character called Blinken, the blind guy, right? And the blind guy Blinken, he's up on a watchtower looking around, supposedly. He's got his blind man glasses on, right? And as he's looking around, Robin Hood says, Blinken, what are you doing up there? I'm guessing no one's coming? He's like, come on down. And of course he falls off the tower, the watchtower, right? The problem is that we don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell the future. And so these managers and people that are really looking at how to advise their clients, right? How to do these kind of portfolios. And this is true even of hedge fund managers too. They're trying to really guess. They're just really guessing to figure out what's going to happen. And it's true. None of us have a crystal ball. We can't ever figure these things out. But the issue is that people keep throwing money at them. So they have to put this money somewhere. So naturally they take bigger risks. They go and invest in things that may not pan out. So my point is this, is the 60-40 split, it might end up outpacing, even though it's been horrible in 2022 and going into 2023, it's been a horrible model. But what if all of a sudden they switch this strategy and then 60-40 ends up being better for the next few years, right? That's the issue I have with this. So what do you do? What do you do instead? Now, one thing you'll hear that there are a lot of financial advisors out there that'll tell you what they think your split should be. I remember one time I was sitting in church and they decided to bring up this financial advisor that lived in our neighborhood. And the financial advisor got up and he gave this presentation about how the stock market's great. And, pretty much he was trying to not pitch himself, but he was trying to tell people, hey, you need to have some financial security. You need to have your retirement, yada, yada. Now, in that neighborhood I was living in, there were a lot of older people. There were people that were easily in their 60s, 70s, and even into their 80s. So one woman raises her hand and she says, excuse me, and this woman was probably, I would say, about mid to late 70s. She said, what do you recommend? Because do you think we should do that 60-40 split? Do you think we should do more into bonds or fixed accounts and things like that? And the guy just said, no way. If you're not at least in your mid 80s, you should be doing 100% stocks, 100%. And I remember my wife and I sat there and went, what? Because one, if there was a securities attorney in there or a securities investigator, he would have pulled that guy's licenses, probably fined him and or gave him jail time for saying that. That is horrible advice. Heck, even in the financial advisor world, that is not good advice. Secondly, what did they do? This was just back in about 2019 when this happened. Well, it wasn't just, the market went up, but what if these people are still in their 80s, then bam, 2022 hits and they lose 20% of their money because they went 100% stocks. They went all aggressive, and now they got to cut back their monthly income because of this. Guys, this is the kind of crap that we see all the time, and it drives me nuts because there are financial advisors out there that have only seen up markets. 2022 was their first experience that they've had, even in 10 plus years of doing their job. And then they say, well, it's just going to come back. It doesn't go down that much. The market's awesome. It's making so much money. Did you know that up until 2022 through 2021, we actually saw an average of about a 14% stock market over a 12-year period? 14% a year. That's about double the long-term average. So what do you think is going to happen in the future? Right? So again, this whole 60-40, is it work? No, people are just guessing. They're really just guessing. And the problem I have with it is this, is that the 60-40 split doesn't really return well. It doesn't really make much money, It doesn't lose as much either, but you do know in 2022, stocks and bonds, the 100% of that portfolio blend lost money. And that's why they're questioning it. That's why they're challenging it, saying maybe we should do something else. I agree with them. I just don't always agree with what they're trying to do, where they try to stay more in the security space of stocks, bonds, treasuries, stay in that traditional Wall Street type of thing that you always hear about. I like to transition away from Wall Street. I like to come back to Main Street. Main Street are real assets. And the funny thing is they actually even talked about having real assets in their portfolio. Real assets are this: things that are actually tangible, things that have intrinsic value. Understand that stocks really don't have intrinsic value. They're all based on hypotheticals, really, right? It's based on a company and assuming there's a certain amount of value there. But we've already seen companies go bankrupt where they went from hundreds of dollars a share down to zero, right? We've seen that happen time and time again throughout history. They're not a real asset. For example, your house that you probably live in, I would guarantee that house is not going to go from, say $500,000 down to zero. It's just not going to happen. There's intrinsic value in that house. Same thing with gold and silver. Now, I'm not saying you go invest a ton of money in gold and silver at all because, by the way, gold and silver usually doesn't create any passive income for you. It doesn't really create any income. It's just a good, solid base. But if you're looking to hold some assets that keep some value, gold and silver have intrinsic value, especially if you're looking at bullion. I'm not saying you're buying gold stock, silver stock, because those things can actually lose money. Those things don't hold their value as much. So again, that's paper assets. Paper assets can lose value at any time. And almost everything that these guys talk about in their portfolios are all paper assets. So when they quote unquote diversify, are they really diversifying if you're only just buying paper assets? And that's exactly why everybody in the markets lost money in 2022, because bonds, which is a paper asset, lost money, and stocks lost money. So unless you had money sitting in cash or in a money market type of fund, you pretty much lost money last year. Now, I like to invest in things like real estate. I like things that have real intrinsic value, and not only do they have real value, but they pay great income. The one thing that's missing from all these portfolios is they never really address how to create income. It's really how to create enough of a nest egg so that you don't run out of money by the time you die. That's really the goal. The problem is that, say you happen to save up $1 million in that humongous nest egg, you're only supposed to pull out maybe 3%. And if you're younger, if you're trying to retire early, maybe 2% a year, just so you don't run out of money in case there's ups and downs in the market. Think about that. You have $1 million and you're living on $20,000 or $30,000 a year. That's not enough. And the whole 4% rule to become, FIRE, financially independent, retire early, doesn't work. That's been debunked a long time ago. Okay, the 4% rule is old school, old crap myth. Okay, you want something that actually works. So if you put your money in the normal mutual funds and things like that, pull out 2 or 3% a year, you're never going to have enough to live on. But I can take that same money and use it to make it work. We had a client recently where he had $1 million. He actually used it and created $11,000 a month within a year with that money. He's living financially independent right now. He's actually able to retire, and now he's work optional. He works because he wants to, not because he has to. He just does little odds and ends side jobs whenever he feels like, just to make some extra cash and then build up his passive income some more. What did he do? He bought real estate. The various kinds, not just rentals, and he didn't buy it in his backyard in California. No, he bought it across the country in a place where the rental prices were actually good, bought it there. We also bought into syndications, things where you can put money in and pool money with other investors to buy apartments. Even did some things in the mineral rights space with the oil and gas sector. And so he's even diversified among the real assets that's paying him good, consistent cash flow. And all the while, he's not even touching his principal. So he's not pulling out the cash from that $1 million. It's still there. His golden goose is still laying golden eggs for him. Where in the other models, where they tell you they're trying to pull out the money, but just not run out of money by the time you die. That is the difference right there. That is how you become financially independent and potentially even retire early too. So guys, that's the key. Like if you really want to make this work, stop worrying about all the guessing and blind man stuff that they're trying to do here and figuring out what's the best portfolio mix for you. The truth is you can take control of your own finances. You can actually make more money than what those guys make for you. It just requires having the right education and the right way to do it. If you thought this video was good, you should see my reaction video to Eat the Rich, the GameStop saga that actually talks about why the stock market sucks and even just investing in stocks in general. So be sure to check that video out too.